places tonight, baby. Won't you come over, love, so I can show you love.
All right, everybody, welcome back to The Link, the midweek version. All the world's a stage, as they very commonly say, and that is very, very appropriate because we have members of the Breaking Wave Theater Company. Our dear friend Joyce Torres, now back on Guam soil, leaving Tinseltown, taking a break from there. And we're happy to have you home, Joyce. Welcome. And James Averman.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, you're basically a cast member of our show, so you're always welcome. And equally welcome to the show because the set and props designer James Averman. So James, good to see you, man.
Oh, half a day.
Yeah, we could use like a real fancy, like a backdrop, maybe like one of those rolling sets, like one of the times, Chris and I'll do the Rapunzel thing, but we'll have our agents call your agents and everything. But the more pressing issue of the current moment is why you guys are like joining us now and everything. And Joyce, I would probably say, because I've interviewed you so many times, we live in really, really bizarre circumstances like right now as a society. It's all of us in this together and everything. So before we get into the meat of what we're talking about today, would you say that that as a practitioner of stagecraft, there's going to be a lot of art that comes out of this experience that we're all going through?
No, I 100% think that. I think because we have so much time to like self-reflect and we all were kind of forced to do it, I think there's going to be a lot of cool art. I mean, it's a little, right, it's sad. I would prefer these circumstances to not be what they are. But no, with everything that I think that has come up in the past year and a half, I think there's going to be so much cool stuff coming out on the other side of all of this, talking about, right, things that we were thinking about at home or things that we finally, right, projects that we didn't have time to do, we kind of had time to think about. So I'm excited, at least for that.
Yeah, and if you've got the creative mindset, that can be really, really cathartic for you because all those months we all spent, the cooped up at home or, worrying or, like in very dark places we'd never gone before and everything like that. This can be a release of that. And, we can actually help other people going through things.
For sure, 100%. I think that's definitely what's projected to happen.
Yeah, and then James, I guess as someone who works kind of like with the backstage and giving like the visual components to these productions and everything like that. What are some of your thoughts about maybe thematically and the colors and the iconography that might go into what productions come out of this in the next couple of years?
I think definitely what both of you touched upon is very true, that art is very cathartic. And I think especially with the hard times that everyone on the planet is going through right now, people need an outlet. And we're going to see a lot of that come out in various different arts, whether it's painting or music or stagecraft. And you're going to see reflections. And I think it'll go in one of two ways. It'll either be reflective of what people's emotions are. So it might be kind of dark and things like that. Or it might be the opposite of that, where it's very bright and hopeful, looking at things as they could be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree. Okay, well, what the both of you have basically like carved out your own niche, and justifiably so, is really teaching locals to really channel that creativity that Joyce, as you have shown all of us, really lies within each of us. Some people can tap into it easier than others. Some people said, I never knew I had this in me. And you've gone on to basically make a career of telling people, there is a voice that may be dormant within you and everything like that. But, Breaking Wave Theater Company is here to let you channel that.
Yeah, I think with Breaking Wave, we're such a big advocate for original works, but not necessarily because we're like, oh, we want to be the next new and upcoming thing. I don't think that's it at all. I think it definitely, the home of it and the heart of it is, I think everyone deserves, there are so many stories to tell. So everyone deserves a platform to tell them. And we found that there's so many things that people want to say and they don't really know how to get it out, right? And art kind of, when you see it at the final part of it, it's so beautiful, it's so, well done and put together, but getting there, it kind of takes a community sometimes. So with theater specifically, it takes all of us. It takes so many people and so many elements to make some really cool stuff. And like James said, I'm thinking about there's so many things that are even still waiting for someone to kind of help guide and create with. So
well, James, maybe kind of explain, because I was lucky when I was at UOG. You can take art history, you can take theater, and they really do drill you into you as a student, whether you're going to pursue that as an academic discipline, or you're just taking it for enrichment. Is they say front of house is equally important as back of house, and vice versa, everything. So maybe explain the symmetry between those visual components set against and providing a backdrop for the performers on stage.
Oh, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, please.
Sure.
That's you, James.
I only had like 18 run-on sentences there, so my apologies, man.
So the front of house and the back of house, or the backstage, we do have to work together quite a bit, especially because not only are we, as the set and props designer, I'm trying to bring focus not only to the actors and what's happening on stage, but I also want to provide a visual, essentially a backdrop of what it's a completely different story, what's happening in the back. So you could look at just the set pieces and find, there's another story being told on top of what the actors are saying, what the monologues and the poems are talking about. And I think that's what's very interesting, especially about theater, because it's almost never going to be the person who wrote the play is not going to be the person who's designing the backgrounds. So you're seeing another person's interpretation of your work. So it is a very collaborative art form.
Mm-hmm. Now let me ask you, over the years, and I remember, because my parents raised me, and they're like, you should have an appreciation of the theater. It's not always just about going to the movies and watching Ninja Turtles and watching everything. There is a different type of entertainment and education that we'd like to expose you to. But I remember being blown away by some of the sets, which were a lot of practical effects. The materials were obviously like a lot of woods and a lot of painted materials. But James, as a professional in this line of work, how has technology changed? Because I know people do big LED background displays now, and kind of like playing off that. If you go to like any Taylor Swift concert these days, it is light years away from like what used to be like a rock concert or a pop show and everything like that. So how has technology allowed you to tell those stories like in a more immersive way?
I think one of the biggest things about technology advancing, especially in the art forms, is that it allows us to do a lot more. We're definitely, we're not making movies, so we don't rely on things like CGI. But yeah, we're doing things with LEDs instead of traditional light bulbs. Part of it's great because now the actors don't have to face the actual heat and they're not sweating all the time. So there's that. But also it allows us to play with colors a lot more. It allows us to make these switches and tell stories using light on a lot of different times. You can change the mood of what something looks like just by switching it from like a cool blue tone to a dark, more somber red. And the message becomes completely different based on lighting, based on the background, based on, the emotions that the actors are portraying.
Now, because you can maybe have one or two operators actually controlling all of those components and everything, does that allow you to kind of like tighten up what would normally be, intermission periods, or just what we call on TV like dead air, because you've got 15 people running around and reassembling stage components, and that way you can kind of like keep the audience immersed in the story? Or,
absolutely.
Yeah. Or do you actually kind of like use that space to kind of say, okay, let's let the story kind of like sink in, let the story kind of like hit him and everything like that, and then we'll get back to Act 2? I can see both ways.
I think it really depends on the pieces, and that's usually a question more for the directors. And there are certain pieces where you want to just move away from real quickly, and there are some that you want to kind of let the audience sit in the dark for a moment and let the message sink in, let the gravity of the situation become a part of the show.
Mm-hmm. But absolutely, you are an indispensable part of like the total theatrical experience. But now to Joyce, I would pose kind of the same question to you, because has the art form of being a performer really changed that much, with the advent of technology and with new I know plays are told like in the round now, not necessarily people speaking out and breaking the fourth wall, but as a director, as a performer, and everything like that, has the essence of being able to physically and with your voice tell a story really changed in like the 400 years that people have been doing this?
Yeah, I think, right. Well, like what James talked about, and shout out to James also for being a playwright as well as our treasurer on our board. So James truly has seen kind of everything, right? Like such a creative brain, but also very logistical. And they're both really needed. But no, I think with technology, we are living in such a cool time. I think it allows us to do so many things to amplify the storytelling, right? Like if you watch a good play, a good movie, all those elements make a difference. Like you don't realize, right? Like that single red light or something as simple as like changing the color of a lightsaber. It means something. So in this current, time, things like Dear Evan Hansen, with the use of mixed media and having things look different on stage and being able to project things. And I think it just makes the storytelling not only really cool, but it also just makes it, it almost, what do we say in the theater? It kind of like you have to lean into the illusion or right, the disbelief. I think it kind of helps us really set up this magical thing that's happening in theatrical spaces. And I really like it. I love new technology toys. I think James is the same way too. Whenever we get like a new something to play with, it's like, I think for this show that we're doing, we got it kind of looks like the ocean water effects, like you're staring at the ocean in the middle of the day and it's like rippling.
That's what I mean.
So
that
it's
is
just
super cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. So I'm like, I want that everywhere. They're like, Joy, stop. And I was like, it just looks so cool.
Is that kind of like what you're using in your virtual background behind you? Kind of like a little sneak peek of what
yeah,
we can expect?
a little, see things like this technology, right? If I didn't have this, you'd see how messy the guest room is. But now that I have this secret backdrop, no one will ever know.
well, tell people how, because, and I think it's important, especially for young people, to realize that there is a time-honored entertainment medium that extends, far beyond Instagram on your two-dimensional, smartphone screen. I mean, that's totally cool, and we're all about that. But I mean, there is a deeper connection of being able to tell stories in the classical way while being, staying current to what current trends are. So you guys are here on Island again. How can people like reach you, and more importantly, how are you attempting to reach out to them and really get them to have an appreciation for the theater?
No, for sure. I write the base of island culture to be Chamorro. If you are Chamorro, a part of our history, it's storytelling. So we've been storytelling for forever, right? Before books, before writing down. A big part of how we learn, a big part of how we communicate was through story. And so theater is kind of the natural, right, evolution and the kind of the other side of that. What does that look like? It is at the heart of it, it's just storytelling. So at Breaking Wave, if you do want to storytell, we want to support you, just come into contact with us. So we're at bwtcguam.com. Check out our social media, or you can be a part of the shows that we're doing, like Unspoken Volume 3, Reaching Across, where we took so many original works, and it features so many new things, and we kind of put it in this like new playwright sort of kind of festival, and we want to help you bring your stories to life, like James's story, which is super good, and I'm excited for people to see.
Well, James, give us a little sniblet, a little sneak peek of that, if you would, please.
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but basically one of the story that I wrote, it focuses on, unspoken, all the unspoken so far we focused a lot on mental health, suicide awareness, substance abuse, and things like that. And one of the stories that I've noticed that doesn't get told quite as often as it should be is stories about PTSD, especially with veterans. And, coming from Guam, we have a huge military population. Mm-hmm. We have so many people in our lives that are veterans. And whether or not they're actually suffering from PTSD, a lot of times that it goes unnoticed. We have this culture of not talking about some of these things. We bury it deep, and that might not actually be the best thing for us. So the story that I wrote focuses on some of the troubles that can happen from not talking about PTSD and what it would take to actually reach out and find someone to connect with to help bear some of that burden.
Okay, and then Joyce, when can people expect to see your production, and and even if people would still like to take part?
Yeah. So it'll be streaming on demand September 25th to the 30th. And you can get tickets at guamtime.net. It's $10 for on-demand access, and you get access the entire 5 days. So you can watch it as many times as you want, any part of the day. And yeah, again, guamtime.net, $10 for on-demand access, September 25th to the 30th.
Yeah. Okay. Joyce, I've always been a big fan of yours ever since I saw you in Mother Courage years and years ago, like at UOG. And James, I've always appreciated your work, even though we've never met. So it's very good to have you in the Zoom room right now. You guys come on any time, because whenever we can talk about people, just being able to tell stories. We do that in our own way here too, but especially because you guys are keeping the craft alive. It's always an honor.
Thank you so much, Jason, for having us. It's KOAM. You guys are always so supportive of the arts and of us. So we appreciate and love you guys so much.
And your show's coming up on the 25th, and I want to say it because it is a blessing, even though it may be cliche and everything, but break a leg, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right. And of course, that was The Greater Good, as we do each and every Wednesday here on The Link, everybody. It's of course brought to you by J. Goodman, a happiness company, and Guam Windward Memorial, where they remind you to celebrate life. J. Goodman's giving you quality products, the best customer support, and friendly service. They're open 24/7 at guamgoodman.com. You can pick up in person, or online delivery is free. Order with confidence, because it is the J. Goodman way. And at Guam Windward Memorial, your love is everlasting. For more information or schedule a tour, call 688-6371. Thank you to Joyce and James. Good luck to them once again. And please stay tuned, because The Link will continue right after this.
17th Annual
The KOAM Care Force presents The Greater Good every Wednesday on The Link. This special feature presents interesting and informative interviews with community leaders and organization representatives to bring awareness to our residents and encourage participation in planned activities to celebrate. The Greater Good is brought to you by your friends at J. Goodman,